gonna rant in an unedited rage right now because I just got home from the delay from hell. And all American Airlines is giving us is we're sorry for the inconvenience. So let's jump right into it, shall we? We went to Toronto for a long weekend, hung out, had fun, and we got to the airport at 8:30 for an 11 a.m. flight back to the States. Seems really reasonable, right? So we dropped off the rental car at 8:30. We went to check in. We went through security. Then we had to go through customs, which took like an hour. So now it's 9:30. We are finally in the terminal. We get our alcohol that we want to bring back. We get some snacks. We get coffee. And we're sitting in the gate. Our flight's at 11. And it's like 10:30-ish by this point, almost 10:30, when they get on the loudspeaker and they announce that our flight will be delayed 30 minutes because basically from what they explained, it sounded like the trash chute or some kind of mechanism, something would not latch, and the fact that it wouldn't latch was going to affect the cabin pressure on the plane. Perfectly understandable. Go ahead and fix it. I would like to be able to breathe throughout the flight. So, they say 30-minute delay, 11:30 now. Okay, well, we're just sitting in the airport, drinking our coffee, eating our snacks. And then at 11, I believe it was, they said it's going to be an additional hour. So now it's pushed back to 12:30. And at 12 o'clock, or before 12 o'clock, it was pushed back to 1:30. And they started bringing out snacks. They had this, cart of apples, chips. There's probably something else on there, water, sodas. And at that point, I was thinking, this flight isn't leaving before 2. Because if they were expecting to board us anytime soon, they wouldn't bring us snacks, right? So, they're still updating us. Apparently, they told somebody in my group, oh, the part is somewhere on airport property. We just have to find it. I'm sorry, American. What? You don't know where the part is to fix the plane? So it's, pushed back to 2:30, 2:45. And then 2 o'clock, just before 2 o'clock actually, more like 1:45. We're all sitting in the terminal. We're at the gate. We're just so ready to get on this 2:45 flight home when we start getting notifications on our phones that the flight was pushed back to 6:30. We look up at the board and it says 6:30. The gate agents, silence. Nobody gets on the loudspeaker and says, your flight's being delayed till 6:30. We apologize, blah, blah, blah. Nothing. I know I said I wasn't going to edit this, but I did want to add one thing. They did eventually announce that the flight was pushed back. They announced it was pushed back because the part to fix the plane was being flown in from somewhere else. Like, they couldn't just get a new plane. They had to fly that part in. Okay, continue. So people start lining up to rebook, especially people who were trying to make connections this whole time. The first gate agent we had, when we first got delayed, she was very nice. She even came on the loudspeaker and said, hey, if you have a connection, do not worry. I booked you on a backup flight. So even if you miss your connection, you're still going to get there today. She was very nice. She at least was trying to help without getting a line. Well, now we're on a 7.5-hour delay, and everyone is either trying to find find a new way to that airport, or they're trying to find a way to get to their final destination. Like, the people sitting behind us were even like, we're trying to get to New York. Like, how are we going to get to New York? And thankfully, there was a New York flight leaving at that gate, so they just went and got rebooked. But, like, half the plane rebooked because the layover just wasn't going to happen. And after all that, there were no more flights out of the gates, because it was one of those, like, smaller airplane gates where they have, like, an A gate, a B gate, a C gate, a D gate. They all left. They left us alone. Nobody there to answer questions. Nobody there to help us. Nobody there to tell us if we were even getting meal vouchers. FYI, Toronto Airport doesn't do meal vouchers for a 7.5-hour delay. What the hell? Continuing on. So at 4 o'clock, someone finally comes up to the gate. And I have been in contact with a friend who works for American. And I had basically said, hey, what constitutes for a meal voucher on your airline? And she said a 4-hour delay. So I basically said, okay, yeah, we're delayed 7.5 hours right now. We should be getting something. So I go up to the gate agent and I'm like, can I get a meal voucher? And she doesn't seem to know what's going on. And she just says they should have handed out meal vouchers if they're doing meal vouchers or something. And I was like, I never got a meal voucher. She's like, oh, we're probably not doing meal vouchers then. And then 30 minutes later, which probably tells me that nobody was planning on doing this, but because I had mentioned food, they were like, oh yeah, we should probably do this. They bring out a cart of sandwiches. And here's my problem with that, and here's where it starts to get infuriating. First off, it was a bag of chips and one of 2 choices of sandwiches and a bottle of water. You really think that is going to suffice and make up for the fact we've been sitting in the airport since 8:30? You really think that's going to help the situation? On top of that, the options were crap. So, the first option I thought was chicken salad. I don't eat meat, so I skipped that and picked up the other one that appeared to be like a lettuce and tomato sandwich. The sandwich that I thought was chicken salad was actually tomato, cucumber, and cream cheese. And it was like half a sandwich. It wasn't even a full sandwich. It was a triangle sandwich. And the other option was the saddest roast beef sandwich I have ever seen. It was 2 tiny pieces of roast beef on a bed of lettuce on a ciabatta roll. No mustard, no mayonnaise, no condiments of any kind. Nothing else to nibble on. If someone had celiac disease on this flight, they would have been screwed. And I still ended up spending money at the airport to eat, and my friends did too, because that was not sufficient for a 7.5-hour delay. You offered us a snack, then you offered us barely food. Like, we tweeted Gordon Ramsay that picture. That's how sad that roast beef sandwich was, American. So, this gets worse, actually. So, we finally hit about 5:30, 6 o'clock. There are other flights leaving out of this gate. There's even a plane at the gate that's having a mechanical issue. Like, the plane was not flying at the correct altitude on its way into Toronto. So they basically were like, yeah, we gotta fix this plane. It's gonna be delayed. Like, I don't even know if they ever left the airport. So at about 6 o'clock, oh, no, actually, back up a little bit. So at like 5 o'clock, they pushed the flight from 6:30 to 6:40. And then they push it back to 7. And then they push it back to 7:30. Like, come on. So at 6 o'clock, I'm looking at the board. And I realize the gate's changed. So I go up to the counter. I put on my best customer service voice because I know she doesn't want to deal with us delayed people. My friend just kind of yelled at her too. So I know she's not the happiest. So I try to be as nice as possible. And I mentioned that the gate has changed on the board and, does she know anything about it? What's going on with that? She doesn't know anything. But instead of being like, I don't know, I would trust the board, she's like, just whatever's on the board. And it takes me that's not even the immediate response I get. I have to force it out of her. And then I'm like, well, maybe you should make an announcement about that gate change. She's like, there will be an announcement made. She got sassy with me, trying to tell her to do something. Don't just sit there, do something. God. So, my group and I pick up our stuff. I see someone from our flight looking at me, and I say to her in a sassy voice, because I hope that girl hears me, I say, the flight has been changed to a different gate. Because no one's making an announcement about that. Nobody. Nobody made that announcement when it happened. So we get up, we go to the correct gate, and there's nothing there to signal to us that this is the correct gate. There is a girl downstairs who asks us if we're on the delayed flight. We say yes. It's the only sign that anybody was in the right spot. So there is also no person from American down there. It's all Delta. And the screens all say different things. So I get in line to talk to a Delta agent when I realize one of the screens finally changes to our flight. So we, head over there. It's now set for 7. They pushed it back from 7:30. It's 6:30, and there's no plane outside. There's no American representative in sight. So I go back to Delta, and I ask them if they know anything, because at this point, I'm ready to punch somebody. I'm so mad and frustrated. And I told them we'd been delayed since 11 a.m. and their response was they could not believe we had still been there. It's been 8 hours and we're still in the airport. So he directs me to the closest American desk. I go up there and I put on, again, my best customer service voice and try to get some help. And Alana, I believe her name was the most helpful person we had talked to since 1 o'clock. The most helpful because she said she was going to come downstairs when she was done with that flight. She said the plane should be there any minute, and it was. And she said that we're just waiting on crew at this point. Okay, so we finally have some answers. We go back downstairs. Shortly after, the plane finally arrives. And then she comes downstairs. She is the first person all afternoon to announce the gate change and the flight departure time throughout the terminal. Nobody had made that announcement until Alana came downstairs. You realize this was almost an hour after the gate change. No one got on the loudspeaker. Nobody made one of those prefab announcements to just be like, attention, everyone in the terminal. This flight has now moved to this gate. Please proceed accordingly. Nobody, nothing. How do you let this happen? If she had not made that announcement, somebody might have missed the flight. Come on, American. So finally, the crew gets through customs. That's all we were waiting on at that point. Because the original crew had timed out and they were waiting for the crew from another flight to come back and come through customs, which they basically had to go through Canadian customs and then right back through American customs, which, God. And I knew they didn't want to be there. They probably had plans to spend the night in Toronto. But, I mean, they weren't that far from their, where they're based, but still, like, so we finally start boarding at, 7:30-ish. Yeah, 7:30. And she's because there's only, 20-some people on the flight at this point, because everyone got switched to another flight, she's just like, all right, all groups, just board. So we get on the plane. The flight attendant at first is very nice. She tells us we can, move seats if we want. We get all strapped in. We get on the runway. We take off at, I believe, 7:48. So we start going, make a nice lap around the city, and then the pilot comes on the radio and says, we will be landing back at Toronto because the same issue seems to have reoccurred. By this point, we're all pissed. It is 8:30. We are back on the ground in Toronto. My friends and I had been at the airport for 12 hours. And my friend starts crying. She's sobbing, she's screaming, she's so mad and frustrated and having a panic attack, basically. And so at this point, like I said, it's 8:30, we had not been fed since 4:30. And, I assume they have to feed us every 4 hours, or at least offer us food every 4 hours. And she's breaking down, so I try to get the flight attendant, and I just say, excuse me, can we get some pretzels or something? Because I can't solve all the problems, but at least I can try to solve one of the problems, right? So my friend is just so on the verge of she's already crying. My friend is just so mad and out of it that she snaps at me, which is fine. I understand. She's having a bad day. This is turning out to be the worst flight experience of any of our lives. And the flight attendant's like, I'll see what I can do. And next thing I know, the gate agent's on the plane. And the flight attendant's talking to the gate agent. And a few minutes later, she comes back to my friend. And I can't tell what's going on because she's speaking to her kind of calmly. All I hear is, my friend being like, I'm having a panic attack. And wait, I want to speak to your supervisor. To which I'm like, wait, what's going on? Keep in mind, from our original places, she and her boyfriend were on one side of the aisle. I was on the other side of the aisle. I moved up a row. She moved back a row. So she's 2 rows behind me and across the aisle. And next thing I know, she and her boyfriend are grabbing their stuff. So I grab my stuff. And I look at her and I say, do you want me to get off with you? And that's when she says, I have been asked to deplane. American literally kicked my friend off for having a panic attack about the fact that we've been in Toronto for 12 hours and we can't leave because the plane keeps breaking down and Americans' compensation and how they've been handling it is absolute shit. They can't even be sympathetic to the fact that we have been in the airport literally 12 hours and there's no sign that we're going home anytime soon. So they tell her to get off the plane. I was on the verge of breaking down too. Would you have kicked me off for having a mental breakdown over the fact that we've been in the airport 12 hours and we got shitty compensation for it and no one's even tried to offer us any money back or anything, and your Twitter people are ignoring the fact that someone got kicked off for a Like, this is absolutely outrageous. Your Toronto people are the worst. They can't even deal with a delay correctly. I got home, like, home is in the airport at 11:30 p.m. I lost my entire afternoon. We booked an 11 a.m. flight so we could have our Sunday afternoons to hang out and get chores done and run to the grocery store and recharge before work the next day. And all we got for wasting our time was sorry, sass, and sad sandwiches. American, you need to do better. You have to do better, because I am never flying American again after this. And I hope you guys don't too. Because this was an absolute nightmare. My friend is on her way home from Toronto. It is Monday at noon. She is just now coming home from Toronto because you asked her to leave for having a panic attack. That's not okay with me. It's not.